What is going on, everybody in the audience? 5-9 Gaming back again to talk about a potentially sensitive topic here. We did, as of today, October 27th, we did receive another informative release from Cyberpunk 2077 saying the game was going to be delayed again. This time by 21 days, so we are expecting it, I would assume now, in early December, unless they, change anything again. I've brought together today for this video myself, Gale Riot, Hydros, Lethal Hit, and Nalar to talk about this because there are two sides to this coin, like very many other debates in the video game and real world. So, with no further ado, we're going to start off with Lethal here. What can you tell us about this delay? How has it affected, or potentially not affected, your views or hype, anything revolving around this game? So, yeah, take the floor, Lethal.
Yeah, so Cyberpunk 2077, that's like one of the biggest games I was looking forward to for launch. These were like my two babies. I had GTA and Fallout, and they came together, and that's what Cyberpunk 2077 was going to be, basically for me at least. So I feel like seeing the news, it definitely kind of sucks, especially since this game was, I think, announced back, in like 2012, and this game has been going strong for about eight years now almost, and now we're getting to the point where it's getting pushed back a fourth time it looks like, going into December now, December 10th. So it does get me a little bit worried, just because I was super excited for this game to come out, for this year, especially to play on the next gen console. But I mean, I don't know, I have some mixed feelings on it. There's some good, obviously, and then there's just the bad of it being a delay. But I feel like for me, there's a good because I look at the launch and what's coming out, and for me, I'm getting PlayStation 5, so, I do have some other titles to kind of look into. So I feel like with the date that it moved into for December 10th, personally for me, it's not going to affect me too much, but I know for others, it's definitely going to affect them. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, Nalar, what's your initial reactions, and then we'll start to get into the details of why this is happening after everyone gives their initial take.
Yeah, so look, I mean, Cyberpunk 2077, you know me, I primarily play gachas, but that's the one game that I was excited to play because I like the Cyberpunk aesthetic. And when they announced that there was going to be another delay, the problem I ran into was this is the fourth delay. And then it's like CD Projekt Red, who are the developers of Cyberpunk 27, they've done Witcher 3. They've had a lot of goodwill instilled from them by the community. A delay is usually better than not having it, because that usually means they could work on it a little bit longer, give us a higher quality product. But at the same time, it's the fourth one. Are they really just milking the goodwill that they have out of the community? That's the question that ran through my head. And then at the same time, I don't know if that's these consistent delays, it's going to be by a couple days. What does that do for 2 more weeks? Does that really give them that much time to really polish out the bugs? Obviously, day one patch releases is a thing now. It's not the case 15, 20 years ago. Again, that dates me to hell. But I don't know. It just rubbed me the wrong way. And this is one of the reasons I wanted to bring everyone here to, kind of talk about it and see what everyone else's thoughts are.
How about you, Hydros or Gale? What are your initial thoughts on a fourth and hopefully final delay on this game being released?
Yeah, honestly, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if it actually releases in 2077. No, but, this is one of the 3 games that everybody was looking forward to, I think, this year. Final Fantasy VII was the other one, as well as Last of Us Part 2. It being delayed for a 4th time, I think, based on how, I mean, personally, first and foremost, I think I've been looking forward to this game for a very long time. The whole nightlife city, this futuristic city with this GTA vibe, like Lethal said. It was very, very exciting. But like many others on just Twitter in general, at this point, it's like, okay, at this point, should I be hyped for this game anymore, kind of thing? I'm still excited to see it and maybe, play it down the line, but it's just come to the point where I'm like, all right, we get it. You've delayed it for the 4th time now. It's kind of like everybody's kind of lost the hype that they initially had. It's like, is this game gonna ever come out, kind of thing? I mean, this time it's not a major delay. It's not a 1 month plus delay or something like that. It's just minor. But like Nolar said, I don't know how much of a difference it'll make in, in terms of actual bug fixes and stuff like that, because we've seen unfinished games be released. Avengers was one of them. Like, I think the day one patch had like fixed like 1,000+ bugs. And then you have some games like Pokemon Sword and Shield, which you knew were like, they looked unfinished when they dropped initially, and then the DLCs came out and they looked a lot better than what the original main game looked like. So delays aren't necessarily a bad thing. It's just a question of what is 21 days going to do. And plus, on top of that, we've been hearing a lot of the team are going under crunch. It's not a good look. And like again Nolar said, CD Projekt Red have a good track record. So I don't know. It's a very interesting situation going on with Cyberpunk 2077.
In terms of the delay for me, it's a mixed bag. I think most of us are just mixed bag feelings at this point. But in terms of 21 days being is that even enough, to fix anything? If 21 days gives them enough to be like, if the game releases between, if they released it now and it has, let's say it has 2,000 bugs in the game that are just, and some of them like can break the game entirely, versus adding that extra 21 days and they can drop that down maybe to 500 bugs and it being less breaking, I'm all for that, because 21 days in terms of development, even a 1 day can make a huge difference in terms of a developer, depending on what it actually is. And this game has been in development for so long. It's been developed basically for the old generation consoles, being PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and stuff. And now that the new ones are coming out, they're having to rework their ability to then up it for the new consoles to work with the new hardware. And then, in terms of like PC, with the new hardware that are just released with that, like the new RTX 30 series, they want to get that in line with their game, probably to then up the game to then work better with that, to even look nicer and all that sort of stuff. So in my eyes, I don't mind that they're delaying it. Again, as Gail said, with Pokemon, it looked like an unfinished game when it released, and that was mainly because they were not given. They don't give Pokemon any delays. It's like, you have this date to do it. You need to get it done, and that unfortunately resulted in Pokemon doing horribly. But in terms of a developer like CD Projekt Red having a good track record, The Witcher 3 turned out wonderfully, in my opinion. And even though, there probably maybe was a few bugs here and there, but they did eventually fix it, which now day one patches are a thing. But, I'd rather have a game that is not buggy or less buggy on release than have that experience kind of ruined because there's so many glitches and bugs happening within the game. Like, if a game crashes because one bug, that kind of just ruins the experience. If that allows them to give them more time to fix something like that to where the experience is a lot better for the player, then I'm all for it, technically. So
yeah, I mean, that pretty much segues us into the reason why this is happening. Hydros hit the nail on the head. For those of you who are viewing, you can see on screen for a while now, we have the actual letter up. And really, the game itself has gone gold. Like, they have said that the game itself is finished. It's ready to basically be played. But the reason for this 21-day expansion is because, basically, like Hydros had already said, there's so many different platforms the game is coming out on. They are taking this extra time just to make sure that it functions well across all of them. Some of this also could be attributed to, the brand new Xbox shipping with 2 different versions. One that's, the more powerful Series X, then the Series S, which is weaker, and they need to make sure the game essentially runs just as well on both of those systems. Then you throw in the older Xbox One, you throw in PS4, PS5, compatibility with PC, and then the Stadia systems as well. It's all really complex, and I feel like this isn't something they could have necessarily dialed in any earlier because, the new systems are coming out right now, the holiday season. So it's kind of like their deadline has also been affected by the new console releasing deadlines. So them wanting to take a little bit of extra time, like Hydro said, just to make sure the experience is smooth as possible, I want to hold some cautious optimism because, like he said as well, there are plenty of games that have come out and been an ugly mess within the first day, within the first week even, and it requires some patching early on to get the game even to like an acceptable launch state. So if they eliminate those frustrations in the consumer base before it even happens, then their launch is going to be a whole heck of a lot better. Like, you could just imagine the disaster of if they had launched the game on target before delaying it, and then it didn't work on the Xbox Series S, and it didn't run right on Stadia, those entire consumer bases would be blasting them with bad reviews. They'd be talking all this smack. So they're really trying to alleviate any potential PR problems before they happen and deliver the most satisfying experience they possibly can to everyone who might possibly be consuming this on all the different platforms that it's coming to. With that being said, there is also the fact that they've mentioned in the letter that the 21 days apparently can make a huge difference in this regard. Like Hydro said, even 1 day sometimes can make or break the experience. We have some other tweets from Cyberpunk here to show off as well. It's kind of funny because they're kind of sticking their foot in their mouth. Nalar, you might be the one to elaborate on this one because you were kind of following them tweeting a little bit. But they said, I believe on October 6th, that no more delays are happening. And then as of 9 hours ago, they tweeted again, would anyone notice if we delete this real quick? So how do you think their social media team has been trying to handle this? Do you think they've done well? Do you think, I don't know, like what are your thoughts on their public, I guess their PR on this situation, Nalar?
It looks bad. It just looks bad in terms of there's no communication, and probably there is no communication between the developers, the publishers' heads, and then their social media team. Because as far as I understand it, I guess we'll get into a little more. I think all the developers found out today, like the rest of us, like they got an internal email saying, look, we're going to delay a little longer. I'm sure most of the devs are groaning because they realize they're going to be in crunch for another 3 weeks. But the optics look bad. There's just no other way to put it, because like I said before, they've delayed it 4 times at this point. And like first couple of times, I think the second one was because of COVID, which understandably, pandemic, you got to set up things differently. Also probably affected Sony and PlayStation and Xbox in terms of their launch dates. You know, that's also another reason we can get into in a bit here as to why they pushed it back. But just in terms of the social media presence and the optics, it looks terrible. For the most part, a lot of people understand that, look, delays aren't bad. They're going to help the game. But if you're doing it on your 3rd and 4th delay, even with the goodwill that that CD Projekt Red has with the gaming community, that's going to wear a little thin. So just doesn't look good overall.
What about you, Lethal? I mean, are you holding this kind of against them, or are you more empathetic towards their situation? Remember, it also has been a virus going on, the pandemic, so a lot of these people have been working from home. Like, how do you think this all kind of affects everything in the grand scheme of their PR situation?
I mean, in terms of like the PR situation, like that kind of sucks, you know. And to talk about the whole like situation where like, you know, the communication just wasn't there, and you know, people were finding out late probably, because nothing's worse than like, you know, like you see people like screenshotting tweets, putting up like, hey, you know, at Cyberpunk 2077, like I can take off of work, you know, on the day that this game releases in November, and I'll be okay, right? And then them responding back and saying like, you know, you're good, like full confirmation, like we're gold. And then having to go back on that really sucks. And I mean, I'm not one of those people, you know, unfortunately that would be able to take off for something like that. But I mean, I can only feel bad for those kind of individuals that, you know, that did take off for this. You know, there are the people who are taking off of work to play this game as soon as it launches and whatnot. So that does kind of suck. But you have to understand too, and I totally understand too, you know, like, you know, it's COVID. Stuff happens, but like you'd rather get a game with, you know, like little to no bugs than a game that has a ton of bugs, right? Or at least that's how I would look at it.
And what about you, Gale and Hydros? Have you been following their PR at all, or have you been upset by their lack of communication, or are you more understanding about the situation?
Yeah, no, I've been keeping track of what they've been saying, and plus I've been seeing some other companies like Arxis trying to take the memes out of it as well, with them also trying to put stuff on yellow backgrounds effectively. But I think at this point you see the yellow background and you're like, oh no, not again, kind of thing. It's like Nolar said, at the 4th time it's kind of like, all right, you see a yellow background, it's like, yeah, you're delaying it again, aren't you? But no, to be honest, the social media team have done the best they can, in my opinion. I don't see how much better they could have done. It's just the disconnect between the developers, publishers, and the social media team is definitely alarming, in my opinion. But yeah, no, it's just it's a hard place for the social media team, especially. I can't blame them for trying their best to keep everything under control. I know a lot of people are obviously rightfully annoyed that again it's being delayed. We've done this 4 times kind of thing, but you can't blame the social media team. If anything, it's either depending on who is directing the game or the publishers themselves realistically to blame, if anything.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily annoyed. I'm not really keeping track of the social media just because I generally don't. I usually do, follow like if the devs do tweet something, but I haven't really paid attention otherwise. I've seen every time they've delayed the game, and it is kind of upsetting, as a player. It's like, oh well, this game, if you're excited for the game especially, it's something that's been hyped up and like for a long time now that this game is coming out. And as a player, it's like you really want to play the game, and it kind of bums you out when you realize, hey, they're delaying it again and again and again, and it's kind of ruins the hype for some. And but I think once the game comes out, I think if as long as the developers do deliver on what they're doing with the game, as long as everything is up to par with how they're basically projecting this game is going to be, then I feel like everybody's still going to be overall happy, and like everyone's going to be excited to get their hands on it as well. What is it? In terms of me personally, I'm not really unhyped about the game. Again, like I said, I take as much time as they need. I'm more accepting because most developers generally wouldn't even tell you. Some don't tell you, and that's the thing that sits with me right with at least CD Projekt Red, is they're at least being open and like, hey, we're delaying it again. We need to delay. I don't think they would delay it if they absolutely didn't have to. If they are doing it because they want to for hype reasons, then they would eventually just kill their own hype. But I don't think they would want to do that for this game. They've hyped it up for so long. This game is a big project for them. It's for years in the making. I don't think they'd just solely do this just to ruin it. I feel like they actually do need the development time, and if the game is pretty solid when it comes out, I just if it makes for a better, smoother experience for everybody when they play it, then I'm all for it. Because I remember GTA's launch, and no, nope, don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
But
I mean-
but my question is it better to just not say anything then? Like for example, with when Final Fantasy VII came, the trailer dropped, the first trailer at E3 2015, I think it was. No release date, no nothing, and we didn't hear about it for another solid 3 to 4 years. Isn't that maybe better, because you're not giving anybody any expectations to wait for the game? Like, they don't know when it's coming out, they haven't said anything, the public doesn't know either. Isn't that necessarily better? And we know Final Fantasy VII also had a lot of development troubles. They had to go from CyberConnect to some other developer for producing the game and stuff like that. So isn't that necessarily better to kind of keep that hidden from people, let them handle it, and then when it comes out and they're confident like 100%? Because what we've gathered here is that they aren't confident in their final release yet, obviously, because they know the game is maybe buggy, maybe they're optimizing it for the new consoles and stuff like that. So isn't maybe it better to just leave it and keep it hidden? So what I was saying earlier on was maybe they could have just left it like, okay, when the first release date was in April, they could have just said, okay, we will release it at the end of 2020, so late 2020, expect the release date. There would probably have been no delays, quote unquote, because it would have still been late 2020 from September to December.
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword. Like, the less you say, that could potentially bring in less people. But, with a game as big as Final Fantasy VII, it kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like the less you say, it might lead to less hype coming up, which, that may affect your sales early on. But then again, if you say too much, you fall into a situation like you said, where then you have to walk stuff back, and that can end up hurting your credibility. So I'm sure there is like a fine balance in between the two that they probably could have managed a little bit better. Just post screenshots from the game's development maybe without talking about dates, just to get people hyped up without, giving away too much information. But I don't know, at the end of the day, there's going to be people on both sides who are going to be happy and upset no matter what they do. So There definitely is. It's a hard balance to maintain there.
I think with this game that they were solely set on releasing on PC, PS4, and Xbox One. I think, it was kind of up in the air when the next gen consoles were in fact going to come. I think it was pretty obvious that they were probably going to be right around the corner, at least sometime soon, and they are now. So they probably didn't even really technically probably plan for the next gen. They probably were trying to get it out before next gen even came out. That way then they could then focus after the fact on developing maybe like, the upgraded version or, quote unquote deluxe version as some games do for the next generation consoles as well. So they could further develop the game without having to worry about, developing for literally 6 to 7 different things at once as they are now. So they kind of, they waited and they were trying to fix the game, and all this other stuff happened. Like we got new PC components like the RTX stuff, and we got all of this other junk coming out like the new consoles, which new consoles are using new hardware, which AMD has never had ray tracing in their GPU. So that's another new component that they have to adjust for. And if there's bugs within the AMD architecture for ray tracing, then that's a whole other issue that they need to sort out with AMD. So it comes into line with all of that probably had that happen. And again, I prefer that a developer speak and be like, hey, we need this more time, but as long as they deliver, I think it'll be good in my eyes. But at the same time, a company that doesn't say anything, it's like, well, thanks for nothing. I'd rather a developer communicate than not.
So just let me jump in real quick. So to piggyback off Hydros's point, this was supposed to come out in April, right? Which was way before the next gen consoles. So the fact that when then COVID and the pandemic happened and they pushed it back towards November, and they were like, okay, so more than likely we won't see the next gen consoles anytime soon. We'll be fine. But here's my conspiracy theory: it lined up exactly when the new gen consoles were going to be released. So instead of just developing for PC, Xbox One, PS4, and Stadia, that's another question mark we have to discuss, they now have to do the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. And because that gets thrown into the system, they're like, oh, we need a few more weeks to make sure that's done. And then they push it out, and there we are, right? So like I can understand that, like when they legitimately say they just need more time because it has to be a bunch of the new systems they have to develop for, it makes sense to me. Like that's a plausible explanation. It just sucks given the context of everything being delayed 4 times. The fact this is a brand new IP, and now I'm going to jump back to Gail's point, is that saying nothing on a brand new IP is really bad because you need to drum up the hype a lot. And so drumming up the hype and giving a release date enforces the notion that your audience can get excited. The buzz starts going, the YouTube algorithm, the tweets, everything, just the machine starts to go. And you want to capture that hype and just run with it. Unfortunately, again, pandemic, delays of other sorts, just kind of like a false starts to everything. And then the other reason why you want a deadline is because if you're actually developing something and making stuff, you want to make sure like a hard deadline means I need to start getting to work now. Because if you just kind of leave it up in the air, it's kind of like, a little lackadaisical. Maybe I'll get to the artwork tomorrow. Maybe I'll design that level later. I'll fix that bug in a week, whatever. So giving a hard deadline just ensures that you just put your butt down and you get to work. So while I agree with you in the terms of the optics, that it might have been better for them not to say anything, just be like a vague release date. The problem then becomes, well, for original IP, you need to drum up that advertisement and that hype. And then for the developers themselves, they need that date to just know that the hell will be over. I agree. Yeah.
No, but I was just gonna add on that to counter the points. First and foremost, being the new IP, it is by CD Projekt Red, which we know. Again, you mentioned it as well in the earlier on, was that these guys have a good track record. They've sold it as that the same people who worked on Witcher 3 are the same people.
You're right.
So I kind of am like yes and no kind of on that. I agree, because it's a new IP. You should kind of show this new world and everything, which they have. 100% agree with that. That's a good thing that they needed to do. in response to the whole thing of having to operate with these new consoles, from what we've known and from what I mean, we've seen news articles back in 2018 that people had the dev kits for the PS5 and the Xbox back then. I understand things change obviously from 2018 to now. A lot of updates would have come out, but we would assume that they would have also received those updates. I agree with the pandemic part though. That I definitely agree. Definitely was a big influence, I think, as to why there was that major delay in the first place. But I think the delays since then are questionable in my opinion. In that they're just fixing a lot of bugs and the game isn't finished and polished, and they kind of underestimated it quite heavily. But yeah, apart from that, I pretty much agree with what you guys said as well. Like, I was trying to play a bit of devil's advocate there, but yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a lot of it comes down to just they're trying to optimize the game and make sure it's fully ready.
Yeah.
In terms of CD Projekt Red, they've had even Witcher 3 had I think like 2 delays, being one of them being 3 months after a set. So CD Projekt Red has a tendency to delay games if they're not up to standard with how they feel the game is what they want it to be, how their vision entails the game to be. So that's where CD Projekt Red really can shine, because they delay it. Witcher 3, in my opinion, I have played Witcher 3. I've not played the other ones, but I have played Witcher 3 very loosely. But in terms of how the game was really good. It was a big game too. It was a really big game, and it was really good for how it was.
Lethal, you gonna jump in?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was gonna jump in and just agree a little bit with everybody was kind of saying, you know, like I kind of agree definitely what Nola was pointing out, and then again to like Gail too, the whole thing with the release date. And I think it's a good point to announce, a good point to say that like dropping the actual release dates, like people looked at that, like people look to those dates. Like I think it's really important when it comes to like getting people hyped for the game and whatnot. I mean, like those dates are really, I always think that they're really important because people mark that on their calendars, and you're seeing people respond, you know, to like the official Twitter, you know, talking about the official dates and stuff like that, and how, you know, they adjusted their own schedules around it and whatnot. So, you know, I feel like those definitely come as like a big important thing, you know, just to get the hype up for the game. And I mean, you know, was it 2 years ago when they had like Keanu Reeves also like, you know, get shown in the game and whatnot, unless that was sooner. But I mean, like all those big moments definitely like drummed up the hype for this game to the point where, you know, I think now there's all those different delays, it's definitely going to affect people, man, because they're expecting, you know, they're really expecting for it to drop this year. So hopefully it does still drop this year, but for sure it's definitely the release dates were definitely important for this game.
Yeah, and I mean that can definitely segue us into our next point as well, which goes into show Jason Schreier here talking about how, you know, the developers themselves, when it comes to this delay, like how they're pretty much pushing like 100-hour work weeks already. You know, there's the crunch going on right now, and that was a huge point of contention with Rockstar as well, I believe, when it came to Red Dead. How that actually came out and put a real negative light on the developers themselves for really asking too much of their employees and pushing them way too hard. Now, a lot of that is understandable when it comes to these creators pushing their heart and soul into the project and trying to get it out in that last little bit of time before it launches. But should we, the community, feel kind of bad for ridiculing them? Or like, how do you take this, you know, knowing how much that they're working to get this done and some of the backlash they're receiving, which we'll also get into a little bit after this? Like, how do you think we should feel, like Lethal, about knowing how much they're working and incorporating that into these delays here? Does that change your opinion at all, or are you still kind of upset that they keep pushing it back?
No, 100%. I mean, unless you're a game developer, no, you don't know how it is to make these games. And from what I've seen, like from behind the scenes and all the different like trailers you see, I mean, they've done specials where they've shown like behind the scenes of, you know, people working on this game, and you can see the amount of work that it takes to build a game like this. And we're not talking like a small little 2D kind of platformer game or something like that, like a puzzle game. Like this is a full blown like big RPG, you know, first person shooter in it. Like there's so many elements that go into this game. I couldn't even imagine the development process for it. So you do got to empathize and feel bad for when they're going to go ahead and add another 21 days, because that just means crunch times. That means people at their desk having like late nights, you know, or sleeping through the night. So I do hope that people, you know, do empathize with the whole situation, because that's tough. That's definitely gonna be tough for developers. I couldn't imagine. And then on top of that, you know, we mentioned COVID, and now they're changing their workstation. You know, they're adapting to something that's new, having to work from home. God knows how that is. I work from home. I have a dog that bothers me every 2 seconds. Like I couldn't imagine what these developers got to do, from their home and have everything else kind of like impacting them. So you definitely got to empathize with the developers. That's tough.
How about you, Nalar? Do you, as someone who has a very respectable job outside of the video game world, how do you see this whole crunch time and working to uphold your obligations and whatnot?
Well, am I getting paid overtime? Is basically the first question I'd ask. But really, there's two sides to it, right? If you're a creator and you're creating something big, like even us content creators, right, and they are making a video game, you want to make it the best you can. Unless you have a hard date, you're going to keep tweaking with it, trying to, eke out some extra performance, maybe make a couple edits, whatever the case may be. You're going to put your heart and soul and continue to change it until that deadline comes up. So with that hard deadline, that means you're going to be working 12, 16, 18 hours, basically sleep for like 3-4 hours and get back to it. Like I understand that. And I don't like the fact that they're working that hard. To me, that just means there's not enough management of expectation and workload to make sure that they have a healthy, working schedule. And like what Lethal said here, the problem is you're working from home. I don't work from home. Clearly, I have to see people and patients in an office, sterilized office. But like for the people that I do know, it's super distracting because you have, especially if you have a family, like most of these guys have families, right? They've got kids, they've got dogs, they've got, and everyone's supposed to be working from home and all that stuff. So it's not a very conducive environment for, good work consistently. But right now, the state of the world as it is, that's what they have to do. So I can understand that they're working hundreds of hours a week. It sucks. I would like them to, have a healthier workload personally, because, sustaining that is what is not viable. It causes you to burn out. And that's what we've seen a lot. If you follow the game industry, a lot of people burn out. They just quit. They go to they open up a new studio or do something different because they just feel so tired from working at these conditions because nothing was managed properly. So yeah, it just doesn't look good at all, because you already know they're still working 100-hour work weeks. And now they're adding 3 more weeks on top of that. The light at the end of the tunnel just keeps getting further away. So
what about Hydros and Gale? Are you pretty empathetic towards their cause, or do you feel like, that should be pretty irrelevant, and when you set a deadline, you should, be more consistent with your word?
I've watched a lot of anime, and one thing that we always complain about is that animators have the same issue that obviously some game developers have. And like Nolar said, it's the same thing. A lot of creators have the same issue, especially when you're in a full-blown industry. Yeah, people just are worked overtime. They might not be given the right payments and stuff like that. It's sad to say it, but it's kind of expected at this point, and it's sad to see. I completely empathize, as mentioned previously. Like, I empathize with the team working. If anybody I have to put a blame on, is probably the heads and like the producers themselves, and like not being able to schedule out and understand like the level of work they have to do in order to produce these games. So I mean, like Lethal and Nolar said, I completely agree with them. It is expected. It's sad, but it is sadly expected at this point. And it is like you see it everywhere in a lot of industries that are creator heavy and creator based, I should say.
And what about you, Hydros? You're a more technically inclined person. So how do you work in their balancing of their workload with the way that management schedules stuff out for them ahead of time?
Yeah, I mean, as a sort of I guess a developer myself, since I've done Trident, and programming is a task in itself. And I mean, I work from home and stuff like that, so and doing all of this in terms of that and then adding into the programming, it can be a lot. And then these devs if they're doing it 20 hours a day and from home, that gets to be tiresome. But from CD Projekt Red, I think a lot of their team is usually generally I guess passionate about like whatever games they're starting to develop. And they were with Witcher and The Witcher 3 and stuff like that, and I believe that the same applies to Cyberpunk. But I just think that I think they're trying. I think they could have managed it a little bit better. They definitely could. I don't disagree with that. They probably You know, they're probably just so passionate about the game. You know, they're working their butts off trying to, you know, have people do this, do that, and the other thing. And you know, Cyberpunk in itself is a massive project when you think about how the world is and how everything is, you know, how everything is together in that world, especially with like with NPCs and how diverse that they're actually making the game. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of passion being thrusted into the game. And sometimes, you know, you just need to delay it. And I understand delays, especially as, you know, a semi-developer. I'm not going to say I'm a full-fledged, but, you know, semi-developer. And, you know, delaying it versus not delaying it, in my eyes, it's like in terms of what Gail was comparing it to, like anime. If you compare it to like the very first season of Dragon Ball Super, we all know the Super Saiyan 3 Goku. It's like comparing that to Dragon Ball Super Broly final products. So it's night and day. If they have a delay and they make it a lot better, or if they don't have a delay and it looks like crap and plays like crap. So would you rather have an unfinished, buggy, you know, horrible experience on release just to have it on this release date, or would you rather have them delay it, whether it be 4 times, 5 times, 2 times, however many times they have to delay it, but them still consistently pushing in the hours, pushing in their passion into the game to make it the best that they want it to be for you as the player to experience? And that's where I am more sympathetic to developers, to where I'm just like, you know, if they need the time, take the time. I want this game to be good. I don't want it to be like Pokemon, to where it's just like the bike floating above the ground, or GTA when you can inject just by capturing JSON files on GTA Online, because that was a whole experience in itself that sucked. So rather than full-fledged get the game out and stuff like that, if they need delays, take all the time they need. Just make sure that the game delivers when it comes out.
Yeah, and I believe that, like you said earlier, Nalar, you had a whole little tangent. You wanted to talk about Stadia for a second, which is a hugely questionable service in itself. But how do you think that that has affected this overall architecture of the game and its release?
Okay, so for what I understand, Stadia, because I don't think it's a great idea personally, but you're playing it remotely on Google servers and it's coming to you, right? So there is going to be some inherent lag and some latency. However, it's a first person kind of like single player experience, so it's not as imperative compared to like a multiplayer like Call of Duty shooter, right? So that's not that big of a deal. But what is big deal is that depending on your connection to Google servers, the quality of the gameplay can vary wildly, right? So if you have a bad connection, even if wired in for whatever reason, like you're only getting like 10 megabits down, that's decent enough to maybe get 720p resolution, but the controls get a little janky or whatever, they're gonna have to factor that in on Google servers, and I'm talking CD Projekt Red. So that is probably an extra team making sure there's optimizations coming from Google servers to each person's remote connection. And sometimes, like you said, like let's say you start off at a high good internet speed, then you drop down for whatever reason, like the neighborhood's uploading stuff or downloading things, and the quality degrades. They need to compensate for that and still make it somewhat consistent in your gaming experience, right? Because that's the whole point. You're supposed to be untethered. You can play this on your phone. You can play this on your Chromebook, on a tablet. So in order to make sure that playing experience is consistent, there's got to be a lot of testing, and that could account for some of the extra delays. The reason why I call this questionable is because I don't know that many people who are actually using Stadia consistently. So
yes, like chat down below, let us know who's planning on getting us on Stadia. I would love to see that. I just want to see it. Everybody watching, you gotta let us know. Are you playing us on Stadia? I just want to count it. That's all.
I hate the idea of Stadia. I absolutely hate it. Not only the fact if you just lose internet just randomly, you can't play anything. You can't. I mean, you have your phone, I guess, but what happens if the phone line, like if your phone, it has crappy connection when you live? Like I personally have like crap phone service where I live, so thankfully T-Mobile has like Wi-Fi calling, so I can actually use my service through Wi-Fi. So that's the thing. It's like if I have that happen, it's like, well, crap. But if I at least have power, I can turn on a PS4 and be like, all right, let's throw on a game and I can play and go. I mean, the idea of it overall for Stadia is really cool. It's just, as Nolar said, it's the connection issues, and especially like, you know, how at times like now where everybody's at home,
Yeah.
Your connections are probably
Eating
going to
the
vary drastically, and it's going to ruin the experience, at least, especially if you're playing like a single player, story-driven game. If that game is lagging and you're sitting there and it's like buffering and all this mess, and it's like,
Oh my god.
imagine buffering in a game and then you just turn it back and it just comes back and you're dead because an NPC killed you. It's like, that's not fun. It just ruins the experience. It makes me want to turn it off.
No, I agree. I think the problem with Stadia is that they expect everybody to have Google Fiber when not everybody does, unfortunately.
Or no
I-
data caps. Yeah.
Or no
I
data
would love to
caps,
have no
yeah.
data caps too. Seriously.
Yeah, that's also true. Unlimited data. It's too futuristic for for the current time. Like internet services have progressed massively since the early 2000s, mid 2000s. From the dial-up era, basically. But that doesn't change the fact that internet still has a long way to go, in especially a lot of countries as well. So it's a good idea, but like Hydros has mentioned, I can't imagine it being a lot of fun when I'm buffering through like a key point in the story and I skip to like somebody dying and I'm there like, wait, what just happened, kind of thing. But yeah, no, I agree. There's a lot more problems and a lot more cons than there are pros right now for Stadia and any other streaming service, in my opinion.
In terms of Stadia, it's kind of like how I'm on the fence, like, how digital versus disc. If you get a digital game, if something happens, you can always re-download it, right? If you break a disc, well, you have to rebuy the game, you're screwed. But that's where that kind of falls into where, it's like that, it's that factor as well. But in terms of like, if again, digital, if they decided just to take it out of your library, well, you can't play it. If you have a disc, just load it in. Except if you have a game that requires internet, then, well, you can't play anything. So it's like the Stadia, and then plus that, it's just a whole thing that I don't think games should require internet, especially single player games, but that's just me.
Oh, that's a topic for a whole other day.
Yeah,
to be honest.
that's the whole thing. In terms of Cyberpunk, if they ever did bring like like PvP or like online like GTA type thing, I don't remember if they actually said would be.
They are.
But if there is, then at least single player, please don't require it to be require it to have internet connection. That's the big thing that's going to be for me as well. It's like, please don't require that.
Yeah, they said it's coming out in 2021, the multiplayer side of things.
Persistent internet connections can always be somewhat frustrating in a game. Also, make a note for the editor, because I showed some on-screen gameplay just now, and it had a titty in it, so they're gonna have to blur that a little bit.
That's another reason to buy it, man. They got to make those textures like top notch.
Yeah. It was a full titty, so it was there.
Hey man,
Like
I
the
want
jiggle mechanics. I need some good jiggle physics. Come on, please.
Nah, I want the triangle era back from Lara Croft.
No.
God.
Someone's a little nostalgic. All right. To get us back on topic here. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Stadia is a neat concept. I don't know if it hasn't executed well at all. It's my final thoughts on that.
Yeah, I just would have wished they would have just held off on the Stadia. They could have done it later. I think Gail mentioned that earlier before too. Like, it just would have been nice if they would have just held the development for that a little bit later, because them trying to make it that they can drop the game for all of these platforms. You're bound for one of them to have hiccups, or it's gonna possibly just go and contribute to what's happening right now.
Remember Arkham Knight? That was a disaster on the PC. That was absolute disaster.
We don't speak of we don't speak of Arkham
horrible.
Knight. We don't speak of this. Never. The Arkham Knight, no. Stop.
Not the PC port, no.
Don't ruin Arkham Knight for Arkham series for me, please.
In that regard, maybe it is better that they've taken this extra time to make sure all the different platforms are unique and function really well.
To be honest, they should have just said screw Stadia. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And I guess from there, we can kind of segue into our last point, which is just some of the community backlash, I feel like, and I cannot condone this at all. I'm pretty sure that everyone that's in this video speaks with me when I say that, but some people in the community really do need to take a chill pill. On screen right now, we have the tweet by one of the developers saying that he's been getting death threats based off of this continuation or this delay in the game. So again, I'm pretty sure I speak in solidarity for all of us in here that in no way can we condone that. But what are y'all's kind of opinions on the community's reaction, both the super negative stuff like this and maybe some more of the reserved but justified takes? Like, I don't know. Give your opinion to, I guess, speak out on some of the more wild aspects of the community in terms of these announcements and this news. Good. Start with like Lethal, I guess.
Yeah. So like that it's dumb. Like those like the negative ones where you're giving death threats. Like I just think that's like one of the dumbest takes you could ever do, man. Like there's no reason to ever, send death threats because those things that affects people, and I've seen it, or I've already saw other like developers get hit hard, even voice actors. I think it was like Lara Bailey for like Abby. Oh my God, she got hit so bad with that. She got like basically crucified, man. And look at when they did Peter Parker's face for Marvel's for PlayStation Marvel's Spider-Man. When they redid the face and everything, like there's never a need to ever do any of those things. It's just it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't change anything. No, they're not going to change it back because you're sending them a death threat. But what you are doing is you're making it harder for them, and you're just giving them something else to have to deal with now, and it's a death threat. No one ever wants to deal with that. But thank God there are the people that do understand and are totally cool with it. I mean, I've seen half and half for comments, and I have seen a lot of the negative ones, but thank God I've seen some of the positive ones where people are just like, hey, take the time that you want, because regardless when this drops, everybody's gonna get it. Like people that wanted to get it are still gonna get it no matter when it drops. If it ends up going to like 2021, guess what? Those people are still gonna get it, even if they're not as hype, and they'll probably still enjoy it just the same as they would if they would have gotten it earlier. So that's my take on it.
What about you, Hydros? How do you feel about some of this crazy backlash?
Oh, lots of stupid people. Yeah, I don't agree with the death threats. Like these people are working like absurd amount of hours to develop a game for you guys to enjoy, and to sit there and send them these types of messages is absurd. Like no one should ever condone that. I mean, I get people who are upset. I get people who are looking forward to this certain release date, then they keep delaying it. I understand the frustration, but you need to also see it from their point of view. They're promising a very, very hype experience from this game, and they want to live up to it. And if they have to delay it, they have to. They need to do what they need to do. And just sending these types of messages, all the backlash. I mean, it's okay to be frustrated. I get it, but I mean, at least understand from their perspective what they're going through. Not only having to make this game, but the conditions they're also having to make it in the world we have today. And if they're working from home, imagine having to send hundreds of gigabytes of files of a game to all the developers back and forth constantly. That's such a pain in itself. So I mean, before you type a message saying, oh, you should go do this, that, or the other, and you're frustrated, we get it. They understand that people are going to be frustrated. They know that when they make these announcements, you just need to chill, relax. The game is coming. It's not like it's never going to come, unless it is in 2077, but I kind of doubt it. But I feel like it will come this year. So just be patient. I feel like the wait is worth it, and just don't comment these types of things to any developers. Don't do it to any of them. I mean, some developers are questionable, but at the end of the day, they're working on stuff they're passionate about. No matter who's developing it, they're making it, and you just at least respect the work that they're putting in, and not saying this type of stuff, because these are also people at the end of the day.
Yeah, what about you, Gail and Noir? What are your thoughts on the more toxic element of the community?
Gail, go first.
Yeah, okay. The problem is that people have I understand investing into a game, like you invest into the stories and everything. It's great seeing people getting so invested, but you shouldn't ever get that invested to the point where you're sending death threats to developers. They're providing you entertainment for a reason. Yes, you're paying for this entertainment, but they are providing that entertainment. Without video games, that this world would not be as fun. I'll just say that much. So you have to give some, and they're investing their livelihoods and time to give you this entertainment. Like for example, we just said it like earlier on, they're putting in 100 hours a week to get this game out. So yeah, I disagree. Like, you shouldn't send these death threats consistently and the way and in the manner some people have. I do agree, and I understand where some people who are just upset, they're kind of like why is it happening for a fourth time and whatnot. That's understandable as long as they're not being a bit excessive. And then of course I understand, and I completely concur with people who are also like, okay, yeah, we understand, fix the issues and then we'll enjoy the game whenever it comes out, kind of thing. So it's good seeing that perspective, but yeah, I completely disagree with those bringing these excessive takes, shall we say.
Yeah, so from my end, you may or may not know, but I've had my fair share of death threats. So
Yeah, you were doxxed. Give us your take.
and
Have
I-
you personally experienced this?
yeah, it's not fun. It's absolutely not fun, especially because it's really inconsequential to my regular life, right?
Yeah, it
Well,
was
I mean,
over
for these
a
guys,
game, mind you. This was not over anything significant. So
yeah, mine was just a quote unquote hot take on a gacha game. But anyways, to bring it back full steam, full circle, I should say, the issue is it doesn't make things better. Like it make you feel better, but the problem is it doesn't change anything at all. It's not like because they said you're gonna kill them or whatever the case may be, that they're going to speed up their development. Like it's not like that's gonna happen. To hammer on Hydros's point, sending files back and forth, it's not fast, especially when you're on a residential connection. If you're at the office where they've got fiber speeds and whatnot, sure, like that's going back and forth. But since we're all right now, given the state of the world, on our own PCs at home, working on stuff as is, you might be waiting for a graphic file from a guy who's like halfway across the world, and then you're like, well, I got 30 minutes to kill. Like this is how things get delayed. Just with the pandemic, as I'm trying to explain. But sending death threats doesn't make anything better. So it's just utter garbage behavior, in my opinion, because you're venting your frustrations in the worst way possible. Like you can say you're upset, you're mad that this isn't happening, you were looking forward to it, you took some time off, and blah 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 blah. But stuff happens, man. Like when you're working on a project, and then all of these guys can speak for it. Some little small thing happens, it's delayed by a few hours, which then delays this, and this. So it's understandable if you've worked in any capacity on something creative that there are going to be delays and there's going to be issues, and some of it's just literally out of your hands. So I just wish that people were a little more empathetic or sympathetic to see the point of view of how they develop and how they produce it. Yes, the end goal is, I want to play it, but if they need to take another 2-3 weeks to make sure it's a better experience, for the most part, that's not a bad thing. So, yeah.
Well, yeah. And with that, I mean, I pretty much think we've covered about everything we possibly can of revolving around this one topic. To summarize everything, we know the developers are working extremely diligently, very hard during crunch time. It is unfortunate that their game got pushed back to a release window where so many new pieces of technology would be available, but they are working diligently to correct that and get the game adjusted so that it can release in a good state no matter what you're buying it on. And there are a few toxic elements of the community that can't seem to handle themselves, but overall, even though there are some negative emotions over this situation, it seems like the vast majority of the community is willing to be patient to give this game as much time to polish as possible. I know that we are planning to do some sort of coverage for this game when it launches, because I myself am super hyped for it. I know Lethal said he was extremely hyped for it, so we are going to try and work this game into our content schedule to keep up with it, maybe do some guides or some more editorial pieces. But in lieu of that, are there any closing thoughts that anyone in the chat would like to say about not only games being released, their schedules, the delays, the workloads, but about Cyberpunk 27 specifically? And anyone wants to take the floor for closing thoughts, and go on ahead.
Yeah, just for me, like, I know, like I said before, I was excited for the game to come out. I still am. The delays are a bummer, but on the bright side, I've got a backlog of games that I could go through for the next 30 years and still not run out of stuff. So another 3 weeks isn't that big of a deal to me, but that's my situation. And let us know in the comments below for sure. What are your guys' thoughts on this delay? Were you excited? Let's develop this feedback here and see what you guys are thinking.
Yeah, and be sure to put down any type of comments down there that if you would like to see certain types of content for this game, like Would you like to see us just do like long play of the narrative, the story on Twitch, or would you like to see more focused, videos about us just trolling around in the character creator mode, or other little segments about the game, going in depth about certain weapons, builds, stuff like that? So if y'all are hyped for the game, feel free to put forth any ideas for stuff you might like to see. And again, we'd like to personally thank Gale, Hydros, Lethal, and Nalar, and myself. I'm not going to thank myself, but thanks to everyone for joining the discussion. And feel free to give anyone a shout out or say goodbye, y'all, and we can go ahead and wrap this bad boy up. Not everyone at once, Feel free.
Well, guys, put down if you're getting it for Google Stadia. I still want to see that, but go support the game. Go get the game. Okay.
All right. Well,
I just want to say, if you're frustrated about the delays, don't worry, it will come. But to people who are sending death threats and all this stuff, you're not entitled to the game. You're not entitled to actually get this game at all. They could just say, "Hey, we're not even going to do it anymore." It's their decision at the end of the day.
I mean, you'd have to first of all pay for it. They're spending and investing their time and effort into making the game. Like Hydra said, it's 100 hours a week. Yeah, you aren't entitled to that game. You're supposed to pay for it. If you're not, and if you're sending these death threats and you're not even gonna pay for it, then what are you even doing? You're worrying over, and you're putting effort into sending people threats for a game you're not even gonna get. So yeah, I completely agree. But otherwise, yeah, just to round off, like, I'm looking forward to the game still. I'm looking forward to watching the game being played. I don't know if I'll be able to get it myself, but still looking forward to just enjoying seeing people enjoy the game and enjoying watching the game as well myself.
Yeah, Gale's got plenty of Genshin to play. That's his RPG.
Oh yeah, 1.1 coming soon, baby.
All right, well, that'll pretty much wrap it up today for 5-9 Gaming. If you haven't already, consider hitting the subscribe bell with the notifications turned on also, so you can keep up with all the content we're going to be throwing out over this upcoming year. And check out each of the individual creators who participated in this video if you have some spare time. Their links are going to be down in the description. One last time, 5-9 Gaming appreciates each and every one of you and expect a lot of stuff from us up and coming. From 5-9 Gaming, we hope you have a great rest of your week. Peace out, everybody.